Russia is accusing the United States of deliberately provoking a dangerous escalation in the Caribbean after a deadly shootout off the coast of Cuba. In a sharply worded statement, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova described the incident involving a Florida-registered speedboat as an aggressive provocation by the United States designed to inflame tensions and potentially ignite a broader conflict. The confrontation unfolded when Cuban forces intercepted a speedboat that had entered Cuban territorial waters. According to Havana, the vessel's occupants opened fire on a Cuban patrol. Cuban security personnel returned fire, killing 4 people and wounding 6 others. The survivors were detained, and authorities say the investigation is ongoing. Cuba identified several of the passengers, including Conrado Galindo Sarriol, Jose Manuel Rodriguez Castelo, Christian Ernesto Acosta Guevara, and Roberto Ascora Consuegra. One of the deceased was named as Michelle Ortega Casanova. Officials say 3 others have yet to be formally identified.
The Ministry of Interior reported this Wednesday on an armed attack against a surface unit of the Border Guard forces in the northeast area of Canalizo El Pino in Cayo Falcones Corralillo Municipality, Villa Clara Province. Stadion Collier-San Neteleita Dedentes.
Alapardo knows the ongoing investigative process. He points out that it has been established that the neutralized speedboat with Florida registration it was transporting 10 armed individuals who, according to preliminary statements from the detainees, had intentions of carrying out an infiltration for terrorist purposes.
Assault rifles, short-barreled firearms, improvised explosive devices, Molotov cocktails, bulletproof vests, telescopic sights, and camouflage uniforms were all utilized.
Among the detained participants, based on preliminary interrogations, the following individuals were identified: Amigail Sanchez Gonzalez, Liordan Enrique Cruz Gomez, Conrado Galindo Sarriol, Jose Manuel Rodriguez Castello, Cristian Ernesto Acosta Guevara, and Roberto Ascora Consuegra.
Among the deceased, Michelle Ortega Casanova has been identified. Work is being done on the identification of the other 3.
All participants are Cuban nationals residing in the United States, most of whom have a known history of criminal and violent activities, including Amigail Sanchez Gonzalez and Liordan Enrique Cruz Gomez, who appear on the national list of persons and entities that, by virtue of the resolution, UN Security Council Resolution 1373, international law, and the Cuban legal system, have undergone criminal investigations. And they are being sought by the Cuban authorities due to their involvement in the promotion, planning, organization, financing, support, or the commission of actions carried out within the national territory or in other countries in connection with acts of terrorism.
Additionally, the arrest was carried out within the national territory of citizen Daniel Hernandez Santos, who had been sent from the United States to ensure the reception of the armed infiltration, and who is currently confessing to his actions.
The investigative process continues until the complete clarification of the events. The note is signed by the Ministry of Interior.
But it was Moscow's reaction that dramatically escalated the diplomatic stakes. Zakharova, quoted by Russia's state news agency TASS, framed the episode not as an isolated maritime clash, but as part of a broader U.S. strategy to destabilize Cuba. This is an aggressive provocation, she said, accusing Washington of attempting to detonate a conflict. Her comments come at a moment of already heightened strain between Washington and Havana. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed that he had been briefed on the incident and said the United States is gathering its own intelligence to determine whether any of the victims were American citizens or permanent residents. Speaking from Basseterre, St. Kitts, Rubio refused to speculate, calling the shootout highly unusual and stressing that Washington would not rely solely on Cuba's version of events.
So this morning, we were made aware by Cuban authorities of an incident off the coast of Cuba. We immediately began to look into it. As it stands now, the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, others are involved. The majority of the information we still possess is what Cuban authorities are providing both the public and the U.S. government. We have our embassy on the ground in Havana working this as we speak, asking for access to the people that were on those vessels, if they were American citizens or permanent residents, according to the Cuban regime that the boat was registered in Florida. We're tracking that down. We will know shortly, and we will know quickly, many more facts about this incident than we know right now. The majority of the facts being publicly reported are those by the information provided by the Cubans. We will verify that independently, and as we gather more information, then we'll be prepared to respond accordingly. I'm not going to speculate, because I'm not going to opine on what I don't yet know, but we're going to find out exactly what happened here, and then we'll respond accordingly. Okay? Any questions?
Have you been in touch with anyone in Cuba? And I mean, what's your
Well, the authorities in Cuba, the border guard has constant contact with the Coast Guard, so they alerted them this morning. I was made aware of it at that time. Oftentimes in these incidents and things like this, the initial reports are incomplete, and then as the day has progressed, I think early this morning, certainly by 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. this time, maybe a little later our time here, I reached out and we began to look at it independently. We have various different elements of the U.S. government that are trying to verify elements of the story based on what's been provided to us now. I know that the Coast Guard has responded to the area, to the vicinity. I'll need to get more fidelity and understanding from them once I get on the airplane about what exactly they're looking for. I don't know who has possession of the vessel, which is the first thing we would want to have. We obviously want to have access to these people if they are American citizens or U.S. residents.
Have you spoken to any Cuban officials about this?
No, we haven't spoken directly about this now. No, I'm not going to comment about any conversations we've had on this topic. Suffice it to say, what it's important to be out there and everyone needs to know is that we're going to have our own information on this, and we're going to figure out exactly what happened. And there are a number of things that could have happened here. But I'm not even going to speculate as to what it could have been. It's a wide range of things. But suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time. But we're going to find out. We're not going to base our conclusions on what they've told us. And I'm very, very confident that we will know the full story of what happened here, and we will know it soon. And then, we'll respond appropriately based on what that information tells us. Cuba needs to change. It needs to change dramatically because it is the only chance that it has to improve the quality of life for its people and not lose 15% of its population since 2021. 15% of the people of Cuba have left since 2021. That is not a system that's working. That's a system that's in collapse, and they need to make dramatic reforms. And if they want to make those dramatic reforms that open the space for both economic and eventually political freedom for the people of Cuba, obviously the United States would love to see that and would be helpful. If they decide they're going to dig in and just continue forward, then I think they're going to continue to experience failure, and the people of the country are going to continue to suffer, and it'll be the regime's fault. What the Cuban people should know is this, that if they are hungry and they are suffering, it's not because we're not prepared to help them. We are. It's that the people standing in the way of us helping them, it's their Communist Party. That's who's standing in the way. If they move out of the way, we're more than happy to work with individual Cubans so they can have an opportunity to feed their families and build their economy. But we are not the impediment. They are.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said the White House is closely monitoring the situation, adding, "Hopefully it's not as bad as we fear it could be."
And secondly, if you can tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. If Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more.
The incident unfolds against a tense geopolitical backdrop. Following the ouster of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, President Donald Trump and his administration have adopted a far tougher stance toward Cuba, tightening pressure on the island nation. Now, with Moscow openly accusing Washington of provocation, the Caribbean risks becoming yet another flashpoint in an increasingly volatile global standoff. The question remains, was this a rogue maritime clash or the spark of something much larger?